EA Sports properly ranked Ohio State in their new college football game.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Here on Tuesday, July 2nd in the year 2024, I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sport stops sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. One thing we love is a new video game. College football, NBA 2K, Madden. Some of y'all play FIFA or NHL. Don't really matter. Everybody, well, I can't say everybody. Most people right now watching this or listening to this are people that enjoy a new video game. And when it was announced a couple years ago, the EA Sports would bring back the franchise that we all missed, we were here for it. And if we have been waiting and waiting for the game, and then we're seeing rankings come out, we get excited about it. And then we're waiting for, where does the team rank? Where will they put Ohio State? They're in the number 2 spot. And that's the spot I believe they properly should be in. I think that when they're putting rankings out, sometimes they're subjective and sometimes they could get things wrong. They could put teams in the wrong spot. But when I looked at them, I'm not upset with what I see. There are some things with the toughest places to play that I was like, not really sure. And we're talking about some other rankings later where I'm like, not really sure. This one, though, I dig where they put Ohio State. 1 through 10, not 10 through 1. 1 Georgia, 2 Ohio State, 3 Oregon, 4 Alabama, 5 Texas, 6 Clemson, 7 Notre Dame, 8 LSU, 9 Penn State, and 10 Utah. I'm the person that is on the record, as some people may think I'm crazy, but I think Clemson is going to be a legitimate contender to win the ACC championship this year. And regardless of if they win that conference or not, they're going to be in the playoff. So when I see Clemson at 6 right now in the preseason, I get it. Keep in mind, these rankings are subject to change, because one thing that we love with the technology now is that they're going to be able to change rankings, move teams up and down. You might be Ohio State. Ohio State is currently at 93 overall. At the end of the year, they might be a 96 or a 97 overall. Or unfortunately, they could be a 90 or 89 overall. Why? Because each week, EA Sports is going to have the opportunity and the ability to maybe raise a player's rating, maybe lower their rating based off really being able to get more concrete data about, well, how they're playing in the current season. I'm not mad about this, though. And I said it in a short recently. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. That the top 5, I think a lot of these teams are interchangeable. I would still say Ohio State is number 2 overall, and I would not move them from there. If you want to put them at 3 instead of 2, could I justifiably say I can understand why they would do that? Yeah, I can understand why somebody might flip Ohio State and Oregon. I can understand that. Do I think that should happen? No, but keep in mind, as I'm saying this, I understand it. And in the game, they both have 93 overall. So if the game said, Ohio State 3, Oregon 2, based off their metrics, that would make a lot of sense to me. Georgia's 95 overall, Bama 92, and Texas 92. I think really Texas could be as high as 3 or 4. Alabama could be 3, 4, or 5. I have a hard time moving Georgia outside of that number 1 spot. I know a lot of people don't like that statement, but I think currently right now they have earned the right to be the number 1 team heading into this upcoming college football season. Now, in the top 25, there is a team that we don't see that all of us will love. That team is the Michigan Wolverines. They're not in the top 25 right now, which means everybody, which is from 16 to 25, is 87 overall. So Michigan could be an 87 overall, but just be on the outside of the top 25 in the new video game, or they could ultimately be, lower than 87. And honestly, right now, based off what I think the defense will be in Ann Arbor and what the offense will be in Ann Arbor, my guess would say they're below even an 85 overall. Sorry, Wolverine fans, if you're listening to this, I'm just being honest with you, which is what we do over here at Locked On Buckeyes. I dig this. And I love how they have been building up and adding to the hype. And the game comes out on July 19th. If you buy a certain bundle, you can get the game early. It's a little bit extra money, I believe. I haven't really looked into all the ins and outs because your boy is just trying to find and trying to get that initial copy. Just give me that one. I'll wait till the 19th. Yes, I would love to have it earlier, but I'll wait till the 19th, and I'll be perfectly fine with that. But what Ohio State can use, how Ohio State can use its ranking, they can use it as motivation. Now, I don't normally say to use something from a video game as motivation. I also wouldn't suggest somebody to use some of the tactics Michael Jordan used to motivate himself on the basketball court. But Ohio State could use this as motivation. And I really think if you're trying to find a way to do it, look, they don't believe you're the number one team overall. Based off what Ryan Day did in the portal, based off what Ryan Day has done in recruiting, based off the acquisitions and the hires that have come in the for assistant coaches and analysts and other things like that, based off everything Ryan Day has done, they still don't believe in y'all. They still don't think y'all are the number one team in the country. Y'all can use that as motivation. Why? Should they? One, I mean, y'all can pull motivation and things to do that stuff from any which way, but also from inside Ohio State, not coming from me first. It's natty or bust this year. And when you have that mindset of natty or bust, one, you're putting a big X on your back because X marks the spot everybody wants to be and everybody wants to get. Everybody is gunning for Ohio State, even more than before, because y'all are saying it's natty or bust. So yes, that could be another reason to use this ranking as motivation. Look, they don't believe in us. I was recently listening to an interview, Big Noon Conversation with Coach Prime. Excuse me, it's worth saying that. With Deion Sanders. I don't want to fall into the trap of calling him Coach Prime, but for my entire lifetime until he got the job, really at Colorado. Even when he was at Jackson State, they didn't really call him Coach Prime. But when he got on that bigger stage, I was like, no, man, that man's Deion Sanders. Anyway, Deion Sanders, after a game last year, may have been the Nebraska game, and I want maybe TCU, forget the exact opponent. But there was a writer that was there, and I want to say it was Ed Werder, who longtime individual covering sports in general, football, and he was there and got into a little back and forth with Deion Sanders saying, do you believe? Do you believe? I think he said, I saw that bull jargy, whatever old language that man be speaking. He says something along the lines of, well, I saw what you wrote, and I don't really appreciate it. And he asked him, do you believe? Do you believe? And there was a little back and forth. The Deion Sanders ended up saying, well, you don't believe. And, well, right now, EA Sports does not believe. We all have the data that they don't believe that Ohio State is the number one overall team. Regardless of what we think or what the team thinks about other people right now, they can use this video game. Hasn't been released yet. It's already the most popular college football video game. It might be the most sought after and bought college football video game ever. And they're going to put this in the homes of people like myself in the mid-30s, people that are 50 years old, all the way down to toddlers. And they're going to say, oh, well, toddlers won't be able to play, but you can be 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, and you can say, well, who is your top 10? Who is your top 5? And they're going to go, well, EA Sports says this. I believe the video game. And they can use this as motivation to motivate themselves. Y'all, it's okay. I would say do it. Honestly, it makes a whole lot of sense for me if I was in this situation to use this as motivation, because you got to use a lot of things right now to motivate yourselves to get to where you want to be. Where Ohio State's offense and defense want to be at the end of the season is the top of EA Sports rankings of those sides of the ball. Is that where they are right now? I'll tell you next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sporting like we want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Once again, make sure you take a trip to FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. This episode is brought to you by Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus has the best selection of pool tables, game tables, shuffleboard tables, and more, and the best service in Central Ohio. And guys, check this out. Billiards Plus carries grills that have up to 30-year warranties. Everything you need for in-home and even backyard entertainment is at Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus carries the best pool tables from Brunswick, Awhawson, Canada, billiards, and more. And the grills, whether you like charcoal or gas or wood-fired, Billiards Plus has a perfect setup for all grillers. No matter the season, Billiards Plus has you covered for all your indoor and outdoor entertainment needs. Kenny, Sarah, and the whole staff will always go above and beyond to give you the best customer service in the industry. Billiards Plus. Visit their showroom on Dublin Center Drive in Dublin. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. A free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, we see where EA Sports puts Ohio State and ranks them as when they look at their team rankings. What do they think about the Buckeyes offense and the Buckeyes defense? Now, some of you right now may be saying, Jay, when it comes to the offense, we are a group of people that is going to be, well, very, very picky. And if you're in that group that's very, very picky, you may say, well, Jay, of course they're going to make Ohio State number one. I mean, it's Ohio State. Look at the talent. They got Henderson. They got Judkins. They got Smith outside and Igbuka. Of course they're going to put Ohio State number one. Wrong. Ohio State's currently right now in the EA Sports rankings of the best offenses in the game. Number 5. We'll go 10 through 1 this time. Change things up a little bit. But yes, the Buckeyes, number 5 right now. Number 10, best offense in the game is Clemson. Number 9, Missouri. Number 8, Colorado. They got that wrong. Number 7, Miami. They got that wrong too. Number 6, LSU. 5, Ohio State. 4, Texas. 3, Alabama. 2, Oregon. 1, Georgia. Now, one thing all of the teams ahead of Ohio State in this ranking currently have is a quarterback better than what Ohio State has right now. The only one that might be a little bit questionable is Jalen Milroe better than Will Howard? That's a legitimate question. Because right now, I would probably pick Howard over Milroe. But maybe the people that have been investigating this game know something about Jalen Milroe that other people do not, and that's why they are currently there. But no, I mean, the top 10 offenses, I can understand Ohio State being a top 5 offense. Do I think they're better than LSU and Miami and Colorado and Missouri and Clemson? Yes. I think they're top 5 offense, at least in the game, based off just the ratings and things like that. I don't know what to expect from the offensive line, though. And I think the offensive line, the tight end position, and even quarterback room and the inexperience there, and inexperience really at receiver, are why Ohio State is currently at number 5. If they had a more sound offensive line, if they had more experience in the receiving room and the tight end room, I think Ohio State would be 2 or 3, maybe even 2. Why? Because of the weapons Ohio State currently has, I understand why Oregon is ahead of Ohio State here. But, buddy, trust me when I tell you this. If they had more experience, you have a hard time keeping Ohio State out of that number 2 spot, even with Will Howard at quarterback. Because I think right now, Carson Beck better quarterback than Will Howard right now. Will that be that same way at the end of the season? That is literally TBD, to be determined. Now, when it comes to teams in the outside of the top 10 that are kind of noteworthy, Big Ten teams, Penn State is number 12 in this ranking, 87 overall. Notre Dame's not in the Big Ten, but they're in the Midwest. They're 85 overall. There's not, they're Big Ten team here. No. Big Ten this year, you got to do a lot of proving people right or wrong, maybe, depending on which way you're side of the conversation you're on. because that's it. A conference that's very, 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 very top heavy. Now, maybe some of you would have expected to see USC here in the top 10. I'm not mad about it. I think Colorado being in the top 10 is bad. It's wrong. It is falling into the trap that Deion Sanders wants people to do, is to believe that the team is going to be better, which honestly, if I'm a coach, I want you to believe in my players. I want the players on the team. You don't own the players, excuse me. You want to believe in the players that are on the team. You want to do that. You want to. So, of course, Deion Sanders will probably believe in the ranking. Now, when it comes to the top 10 defenses in the new video game, y'all can guess who has the number one spot. OHIO. You are correct. Ohio State has the number one defense in the video game, 96 overall. I forget if I mentioned the team's offensive rating in the game. That is 89 overall for the Buckeyes in the new EA Sports College Football 25 video game coming out July 19th. 10 through 1, the top 10 defenses: 10 Utah, 9 Penn State, 8 Texas, 7 Michigan, 6 Notre Dame, 5 Clemson, 4 Alabama, 3 Oregon, 2 Georgia, 1 Ohio State. There are, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4 Big Ten teams in the top 10 defenses in the game. There's 1, 2, 3. That's weird. SEC teams in the game. The weird part is that Texas, I now have to consider, because they are in the SEC. There's 1 ACC team, 1 Big 12 team, and of course, the lone independent is Notre Dame. I get it. Like, I really do think, even with some of the things going on with the linebacker position we're going to talk about later on in the week, that Ohio State is right now. They do on paper have the number one defense in the country. Now, I know we've spent a lot of time talking about rankings and where Ohio State is as a team right now, and where Ohio State is as an offense right now and a defense right now in the new video game. But there's one thought in my mind about all of this. Regardless of where they are right now, if Ohio State wants to have the number one offense in the game, number one defense in the game, number one overall team ranking in the game, they control that for as much as they can. Granted, of course, injuries come into play, and injuries will hopefully not hinder Ohio State this year. It's one of the things you kind of have to factor into potentially happening, but you don't want it to, which is why Ryan Day discussed the depth at D tackle and at safety as things that, well, we're still trying to figure this thing out. And I'm very glad that Ryan Day opened up and said, hey, well, we're not just worried about, well, the D tackle depth or as a whole, or we're not just worried about the quarterback battle, but he's going a little bit further than just the guys at the ones. One, he's a good, smart coach, but also two, it's reality. Now, he didn't shed all the light on the reality. That may be tomorrow's show, not sure yet. But Ohio State holds the keys to get into the door of being the number one spot. They do. Nobody else. Ohio State right now on offense and on defense and hopefully special teams as well, they have a formula that if it's worked to perfection can lead them to winning a national championship. And honestly, you can have the number one offense, number one defense, and honestly be number one at the end of the season based off what's on the team right now. They hold the keys to that. They hold the keys to what they can do based off the talent in the room. So if they hold the keys to it, they can't control the narrative about them. How do they do that? Based off how they play on the field. Now, it sounds pretty easy, right? Just saying, well, play a certain way. You'll get what you want. Yes, it's easy to say that. There are 11 guys on the other side of the ball that are trying to make sure you don't accomplish every goal you have this year. The Buckeyes got 3 goals. Beat the team up north, win the Big Ten, win the Natty. And everybody Ohio State plays has one goal in mind. Make sure Ohio State does not reach their goals this year. That's what their mission is. Ohio State's mission, win the Natty. And they need to make sure they do what is needed so that thing is done this year. Now, we've gone through a lot of rankings. I even touched on EA Sports ranking of the toughest places to play in college football. But what do I think are the toughest places to play in the sport? I'll tell you next. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen or maybe first watch every day. I like lists. I am going to be putting one up together for the JC Was podcast in the near future, about a month from now, we'll be unveiling my ultimate college football road trip. If you want to know more about that, tap into the J. Stevens podcast in about a month from now, maybe a little month and a half leading into the start of the college football season. I like making lists. I do it in my head. I used to do it on paper a lot. And this one's going to be fun. This one's going to be, I would say, not so easy, but it will be an enjoyable one to dive into. The toughest place to play in college football. And before we get too deep in this, I do think that Ohio Stadium, the Horseshoe, is a top 5, is a top 3 place to play in the sport. Now, some of y'all might say, Jay, you crazy. I would agree with you. Sometimes I am a little bit crazy, but this is not one of those times. Number 10 right now for me in this grouping, it's Oregon. Ohio State goes there October 12th. Oregon, to me, the part of the country they're in, also, I'll get to Ohio State here in a second. The part of the country they're in, the time zone they're in, the difference of just the Pacific Northwest and the sports fandom there, that's a very, 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 very difficult place to play. Now, you may say, Jay, Oregon really isn't that good consistently. Well, think about what they've done over the past 15 years. They've been one of the more successful football programs in the sport. And so you can't really say, well, no, they're not that good. Well, that's actually true. I do have Ohio State number 3 right now. And I get to why that is that case in a second, but I do have Ohio State not just in the top 5, but they're number 3 for me. Number 9 is another school on the western portion of the country. It's Utah. Utah's been one of the most consistently good programs, most consistent programs. That's really one of the better teams for about a decade and a half. Now, they're not one of those schools that you're going to say, Jay, they're going to compete for the Natty every year. No. What did Ohio State have to do a couple of years ago with the football team? That was a road game with the football team. Do some things that many people didn't think Ohio State would need to do to beat Utah in the Rose Bowl. For them, for their fans, you can say, well, this is our national championship. It's not only against Ohio State, it's also in the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all. I got Utah at number 9. Sorry, Washington fans. I know a lot of you may be thinking, like, where's Washington? They're not in the top 10 right now. Number 8's Oklahoma. A lot of that is college football history in mind. A lot of that is the brand of Oklahoma. A lot of that is the place in the country it is. It's not really one of those places that's moving quickly. No, it's not. So I have Oklahoma, Norman, Oklahoma at number 8. At number 7, I'm going to switch things up here really quickly. I got Tennessee. Good old Rocky Top. My wife hears me every now and then. I will just start bursting that out. In song, I just start singing the song, and it's like, why? I don't know. It's just me. But Tennessee, they're not consistently one of the best schools in their division, one of the best teams in their conference, and which means they're not consistently making the playoff. I don't believe Tennessee's ever made the playoff. But y'all, them fans at Neyland Stadium, especially when the CBS had the SEC package and the number 1 game, and you knew it was 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central, and it was Tennessee is on, they're home. You knew that place was going to be rocking. And it was not just for CBS being in town. It was consistently that way. Number 6, Texas. Them Longhorn fans are crazy. Never been to a game. I've been to Austin, Texas before. I actually got a tour of Jerry's World. I should have tried to get a tour of the Texas Longhorn Stadium. Didn't actually happen. But trust me, that was one of those things where it's like, well, and a part of this is maybe a little nostalgic for me because I do remember what they were under Vince Young, and I do know what that brand means for not for Ohio State, but for just college football over the past 20 years, or really for the history of the sport. I got Texas at number 6. Trust me, and my entire life, I was never going to put Oklahoma above Texas in this. I'll go quickly through the final 5. 5 Penn State, 4 Clemson, 3 Ohio State, 2 Alabama, 1 LSU. Now, in the top 5, you may say, Jay, you heard me say LSU, Bayou, night games at LSU are different. Just any game at LSU is different. Number 2, Alabama. A lot now. There's a Saban effect that hit Alabama, but there's also the college football effect of Alabama and Tuscaloosa just being one of those places that All they do is win. That's why they're number 2. I don't really like Alabama that much. I can't stand that school in Tuscaloosa. I said that on a show that I host weekly for the Kokomo Post, and so I still believe that to be true. I can't stand that school down there in Tuscaloosa. However, I do believe that Bryant-Denny Stadium was one of the toughest places to play in the sport. Ohio State is very unique. It's a unique shape of the stadium. It's a unique spot. You're in downtown Columbus. And not many schools. You're in the heart of the city. Not many schools are in the heart of the city. Not many schools have the fan base that Ohio State has. Yes, I love Ohio State fans. Yes, we all love Ohio State. We all have that thing in common. And yes, over the past 5 years, Ohio Stadium has been a more raucous environment than it had been the previous 5 years or the previous 10 years. When Ohio State's been really good. Trust me, it's been more raucous. Why? I don't know. I have no idea what the formula has been to get the fans louder. I'm not sure, but trust me, I enjoy it. Clemson is one of those, it shouldn't be sneaky, but it's always tough. The Clemson entrance, when I saw it on, I think for the first time when it sticks out in my mind on primetime, Fowler and Herbstreit calling the game. I forget who Clemson was even hosting. I'm not sure. But, man, the way that they brought in the guys on the bus and they said, oh, we're going to sit here for a little bit. We're going to touch this rock and then run, sprint down this hill with Dabo leading the way. Man, that got me going. But now like it is when I see the boys running out the tunnel at the shoe onto the field and the fans are going wild and crazy. I know Virginia Tech's not on here. Great entrance. I don't think the home field advantage is truly there. I love Kyle Field. Do they always win when they're home? I'll leave it at that. Y'all, it's just fun to be here, back with you here on a Tuesday. Few more days left this week. Going to dive more into things going on with Ohio State football moving forward. So things Ryan Day mentioned in a presser. There's some other things that are very important this time of year to discuss as Ohio State prepares for what should be a very special season. Speaking of something that's very, very special, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On Plus, our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today available on the free Fire TV channels app. You can follow me on X at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked On Buckeyes here on a Tuesday. We'll see you next time.